Hello and welcome to a video on Digital Diamond Baseball, a video tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to look at customizing play-by-play. I'm going to start by taking a peek at the Digital Diamond data files folder here. And you can see there's two folders that are important for writing your own custom play-by-play. The first is the properties folder and the second is the play-by-play folder. Let's look at the properties folder first. You can see here there's several files called System PBP in this folder. And this is the built-in play-by-play for the game. And you should never edit these files. You don't have to edit these files to customize the play-by-play. But you will want to take a look at them to get an idea about what's there and what you might want to override or change. The second folder is the play-by-play folder. And this is where your custom play-by-play should go. And there's three different levels of customization. There's the user PBP file, which may or may not be on your computer, but if it isn't, you can create it. And this is the file that you can use to override, delete, or add new play-by-play calls to the game. The next two are files that you can apply to a specific library or to a specific team, and you may have many library-specific files and many team-specific files. For example, this file I created for custom play-by-play for the All 2010 Decade Library. This one I created just for the Phillies. You can have many of these, and you can have one that you can use which will be applied to all of your libraries. Okay, let's take a look at how you would go about doing this. First, I'm going to take a look at one of the system property files in the properties folder. This is the file that you shouldn't edit, but you can certainly look at to get an idea of what's out there and what you might want to change. In this case, I'm looking at the batter up calls here. And you notice all of these calls start with some tag that tells you what the call's for. Then another tag which tells you how often you want it to happen, where often is the most often happening, likely is the second most likely, then there's unlikely, and finally rare. For the play-by-play calls, there are things called tokens, which are automatically substituted by the game engine. For example, the batter token will automatically substitute the current batter, and game stats will automatically substitute the player's game stats, but it won't do it always. Sometimes it'll do it, sometimes it won't, just to add some variety to the play-by-play call. /n represents a new line, which will put a new line before you print the actual play-by-play. All of your play-by-play should start with the /n. There's lots and lots of examples in these files that show you all kinds of different tokens that you might encounter, and you're welcome to browse all of the different play-by-play files to get an idea about what tokens are out there and what events are out there as well. For example, here's an event, runners on the corners. Here's another event, runner held on first. When you're perusing through these, you might find particular ones that you want to remove from the game or override. And you might want to do this for all of your libraries. To do that, you want to edit the user PBP file. And what I've done here as an example is I've copied all of the batter up play-by-play calls and pasted them into the user PBP file. And then I've blanked them all out. When you empty them out, you're basically saying, I don't want these to show up anymore. And if you put it in the user PBP file, you're saying, I don't want them to show up anymore in any library that I'm using. I don't want to see them. So I basically have blanked them all out so that they won't show up anymore. And then I've overridden the first two. To override it, you just provide a different definition. Here's the batter up often. Here it is again with a different definition. The definition I put in here was something silly, just user PBP. This isn't a very useful play-by-play call, but it does make it clear where this is coming from to prove that it is in fact overriding the call. You would want to put more interesting play-by-play here, but for now it's good for a demonstration to show how you can override these things. One more comment I should make, notice that all of these lines have to be unique for the batter up event. So you have to put a number at the end that's different for each one. You can pick any number you want as long as it's not being used for the batter up often event. Okay, Back to this. So we've overridden 2 and erased the others. That means when we run a game, we should start to see this play-by-play showing up. And we shouldn't see any of these show up. But we will occasionally see some of the less likely ones that I didn't override should show up in the play-by-play. The next level of overriding you can do is on the library level. And I created a file called, in the play-by-play folder, called All Decade Play-by-Play. And I'm going to assign this to a specific library. And here I've overridden 2 more play-by-plays, and I'm calling them All Decades. So they'll actually show a play-by-play called All Decade, which again isn't very useful, but it shows that the override is happening, and it shows which file the override is coming from. This will only be applied to the All Decade library. If I play other libraries, they won't show up. Only my user play-by-play changes will. This will only apply to a specific library. So again, this is all libraries. This is just a specific one. And then the finest granularity is a team play-by-play file, which I created PHI play-by-play. And this file will only apply for when the Phillies are playing at home. And I did the same thing. I created 2 more, overrode 2 more, the 304, 305 ones. And I'm printing PHI PBP at bat and PHI PBP infield. These are special play-by-play calls where you can stick home at bat or home infield in front, and they will only trigger if the home team is at bat. And this will only trigger if the home team is in the field. Finally, I overrode 2 more calls where I just put PHI PBP, and this will happen regardless of who's at bat and who's in the field. So this allows me to put some kind of home call, bias calls for the home team when they're at bat or in the field by adding these prefixes. And these can be more general home calls. So let's summarize quickly before we go on to the library itself and play the game. Inside your folder, you've got a Properties folder, which has all of the built-in system play-by-plays. You're welcome to look at these to see what plays are out there and decide which ones you want to delete or override. Or you can create your own. The first level of overriding is at the global level, the user play-by-play file, and that's located in the play-by-play folder in your Digital Diamond Data Files folder. This file will be applied to every library you use. It's a global file, and this is where you would put your global changes, what you want to show up everywhere. In this case, I erased most of the batter up events and just overrode 2 of them. The next level you can do of overriding is at the library level, and you can create as many of these as you want. I created one called All Decade Play-by-Play, and I overrided 2 more. The finest level of granularity can be done at the team level, and you can create as many of these as you want as well. In this case, I overrode 4 of them. 2 that were specifically for when the home team is at bat or in the field, and the other 2 that are just more general and will show up regardless who's up or who's in field. Now let's take a look at how we would assign these to the game. The user play-by-play happens automatically. That global file, you don't have to do anything. It's always called user PBP, and anything in it will always override the system files. But for the library-specific ones, you'll have to do something special, and same with the team ones. If you go to Library Options, you can go to the Advanced Options and click on Miscellaneous Options. Here's where you can specify the play-by-play file you want to apply to the current library and the current library only. And you can see I picked the All Decade file here, so that my All Decade library will now use these play-by-play files in addition to the system ones that haven't been overridden. As far as the teams are concerned, you have to go to the team editor, choose the team you want to apply your play-by-play file to, in this case Philadelphia, and here is where you can pick that file. Notice I picked PHI-PBP, the file that I had created. Once all of that's done, you can fast play a game and see what's happening. Okay, so here I am in the schedule, and here's some games that I have played. Let's just click on one and see what we find. This is a game that does not involve the Phillies, but it is part of the All Decade team library. So we should see overrides from the user play-by-play, which is the global one, and overrides from the all-decade one, but not from the Philadelphia file. If I scroll down, sure enough, here's an all-decade call. Remember, we added that for the batter up. Here's a user play-by-play one. These other ones are ones that I haven't overridden. There's another user PBP and so on. But there are no Philadelphia ones, either at home or not at home. There's a whole bunch of user PBPs in a row. Now let's take a look at a Philadelphia Philly home team. Here we should see the global ones, user play-by-play, all-decade ones, because this is an all-decade library game, and also some specific Philadelphia ones. Right off the bat, there's an all-decade. Going down further, here's a Philly play-by-play at bat, and sure enough, the Phillies do happen to be up right now. And here's one from the global user play-by-play. Let's see if we can find one where the Phillies are in the field. They've got to be in here somewhere. Here we go. Here's one where the Phillies are in the field. See, Blanton's on the mound, and it was hit to Rollins in the field. So you can start to write more biased play-by-plays here when you override things for a team specific for when your team is in the field or at the plate. All right, that is a long-winded explanation for overriding play-by-plays. It's really quite a bit of fun to do once you get used to it. If you have any questions, you know how to get in touch. And if you have any recommendations on play-by-play calls, feel free to send them to support@digitaldiamondbaseball.com. And if we like them, we'll put them in the game for you. Cheers.